China's high-speed rail U-turn technology has amazed the world. Even beautiful countries can't catch up. I don't know if you have ever thought about such a problem. When taking the high-speed rail, does the high-speed rail need to be turned around? How would you operate it if you needed to? In fact, many people know that the high-speed rail needs to be turned around. But I can't say why, and for a trivial matter like the high-speed rail U-turn, but it requires a lot of technical support. That's different from country to country. Our country's methods are particularly sophisticated. Today we will talk about how the high-speed rail turned around. High-speed rail first appeared in some European and American countries. In addition to trains that can travel in both directions, these European and American countries, there is also a special route for the train to turn around. There are three main ways they turn the train around: the light bulb line, triangle lines, and large turntable. So let's talk about the light cord. And that's when you get to the terminus. You make a circle around the tracks. When the train arrives at the station, disconnect the front and rear of the train. The driver takes the front of the car and turns it around by himself. Attach the tail when he comes back. This means the train has completed a U-turn, and it's because these loops of train tracks are like a light bulb. So this kind of U-turn is called a bulb line. There's not a lot of technology involved. It takes up a lot of space, and the light bulb line has to be long enough for the front of the train to go around once. That's a lot of wasted track. This is literally the most antique train U-turn ever. We're looking at triangles. From the name, we can tell that the orbit of this U-turn is a triangle. We start by building a triangular pattern in our mind. Start with one of the vertices set to 2 o'clock. We set the other vertices counterclockwise to points B and C in sequence. Wait for the train to arrive at the station. Separate the front of the train from the back of the train. The driver of the train first drives the front of the car from 2 o'clock to point B. Go from point B to point C. You go from point C to point C, so you do the U-turn before you step back. This method is different from the light bulb line except for the shape. It seems to have added a little bit of technical content. Others are no different. Still a waste of space and resources. Then we look at the third. This method is much more advanced. It's called the big turntable method. Hearing the name makes me feel imposing. The diameter of this turntable is exactly the length of the front of the car. When the train comes into the station, it is still necessary to separate the front and rear of the train first. And then the driver drives into this big turntable with separate front. We do a 360-degree rotation of the giant wheel. The first way to rotate is simple and rough. As long as a dozen strong men shout slogans together, just turn the turntable like a donkey-rotten millstone. It's interesting to watch, but it's just too expensive. Up to now, European and American countries have an electric version of the rotation method. It also has a much smaller footprint. It's better than before, but still inconvenient. After reading these common U-turns abroad, what is the superb U-turn method in our country? China's high-speed rail has 1 car and 2 heads. How a novel U-turn should work. Above, we talked about how the foreign high-speed rail turned around. Next, let's see how China's high-speed rail turned around. Have friends who often take the high-speed rail notice that whenever we take the high-speed train, the direction we are facing is always the direction the train is going. In our country, there's been a way of turning around for a long time. This is an article from our primary school textbook called Zhantianyu. It records that China's first self-built railway was the Beijing-Jiangjiakou Railway. During the Guangxu period of the late Qing dynasty, our country has the voice over the outside world. And the railway that we were going to build at that time attracted the attention of many business people. At that time, they all pointed at the Beijing-Changjiang Railway because they didn't think we had the talent to build the railways. Giving our country the opportunity is a waste. But in the end, under the distance of our country, Britain and Russia agreed that China would build it independently. So the burden fell on Zhantianyu in order to build the Beijing-Jiangjiakou Railway as soon as possible. Zhantianyu over the mountains, sleeping in the air. Later generations believe that Zhantianyu invented the straight line. But it's not right. The straight line has been used in American mines and railroads for a long time. It wasn't invented by Zhantianyu. And Zhantianyu of our country plays a subjective initiative. Creatively designed the chevron-shaped railway. We designed 2 locomotives, One is used to pull and the other is pushed behind. The train turned upside down as it entered the herringbone fork. What was originally pushed forward enters the fork in the road, and then becomes pulled back. The original pullback was changed to push forward. So not only does it calculate the route, but it shows that the train is turning around. It's the first train U-turn in the history of our country. And as technology continues to advance, how is our country's high-speed rail turning around now? Shouldn't it be the old way anymore? Compared to past train U-turns, now the U-turn seems much more advanced. Although our country is not the original country of high-speed rail, but our country has become the world's high-speed rail. The most widely covered countries, high-speed rail has also become China's calling card for going global. Many attentive netizens will find that the front and rear sections of our country's high-speed rail have two identical front and rear sections, and so it is. Our country's high-speed rail has two different train heads. It's not like a traditional two-way train. We added two locomotives in different directions on the front and rear sections of the train. That way, our high-speed rail drivers don't have to turn around. It doesn't take that many cumbersome steps at all. What car separates the front from the rear? What car reverses? Our driver just goes from the front compartment to the rear compartment. Then someone is confused again. Since it is flipped, then why can't we feel it? Whenever we go to take the high-speed rail, it feels like he's driving forward. I didn't say that I got to the car and drove forward, and the illusion of people backing up. This is because before we get in the car, the crew of the carriage will adjust the train seats. By the way, when the carriage is cleaned, because the seats on our high-speed rail can be adjusted, it's got a foot switch underneath it. The staff can easily turn the seat by simply stepping on this switch. Keep everyone running in the direction of the train. But some people will say, do you have to rotate the seats when the train arrives and returns? So many seats can't be completed in a short time. Can these adjustments be omitted? And you know what? The seats on the high-speed rail should always be placed in the direction of the train. The seats are facing each other. So why is that? In fact, the speed of high-speed rail is very fast. Basically 250 kilometers an hour. Faster still, 350 kilometers. For an hour, if a person is moved in the direction of the train, many of the elderly cannot stand such a fast speed and appear dizzy vomiting phenomenon. And it's designed with horizontal rows of seats. More references are to airplane seat design. Then why are the seats on the train facing each other? Is it just for the convenience of everyone chatting about melon seeds? Trains pay more attention to the utilization of space and the passenger capacity they can accommodate, so being face-to-face saves space in the carriage. Increase the utilization of space, and the most important thing is that the train is huge. You can't turn around at your destination like a car. The only way is to hang another front at the back of the train. If you drive back like this, the passengers on the train are all facing the passengers in the opposite direction of the train. It looks like everyone is going backwards. Weird and face-to-face. Passengers who always have their turn follow the direction of the train. And that's what trains are like now. It has always been using the design of the past. I want to demolish it all and replace it. It's still impossible to hold a meeting for a while. Today's high-speed rail generally has two control types. There is no need to turn around at all in this situation. But if you don't turn around, the problem is the wear and tear of the seats. However, the problem that can be solved by pressing the pedal lightly is very simple and convenient. Compared with European and American countries, this technology in our country saves both manpower and physics. It must be more convenient than the big turntable that European and American countries are keen on. The United States has the largest railroad in the world, but no one rides, because in European and American countries, people are more enthusiastic about driving private cars or taking planes. The construction of railroads in the United States was all in the hands of privately owned factories. The government will naturally not take taxes collected to subsidize private railroads. These taxes can only be used in times of crisis. With China's vigorous development of high-speed rail in recent years, continuous improvement of technology, our country's high-speed rail has become the safest in the world. It has become the longest railway system. Presumably, the United States will never catch up with our country in terms of high-speed rail. So, what other ways do you know to turn the high-speed rail around? You can leave a message in the comment area. Goodbye. And see you in the next episodes.